o'clock. I can call this meeting to order. And since all of the committee members are here in person, I can dispense with some of the Zoom stuff. We do not currently have any Zoom attendees, so for the moment at least, it's the three of us. And our first agenda item is the updated action item list.
So I did have a chance to update for Chief Matthews feedback this afternoon. So I think overall, I mean, we've got almost or maybe just shy of a third of the responses back from the stakeholders. I don't know if we had a plan for outreach for a follow-up, or if, for all I know, if Williams already started to ping anybody for any of the folks that haven't responded yet.
Yeah, I haven't taken any action, but that was on my plan to discuss following up with the stakeholders as our next agenda item.
Sure. So I guess, yeah, so it's sticking to this one. I don't know what our plan would be in terms of working through the detail. Part of me thinks, and I think I might have made this suggestion in a prior meeting, but just to put some organization to it, I don't know if we should plan on calling out certain articles that we're planning on diving into in a particular meeting. So that, you know, so we and to the extent that there's anybody that from the public or any of the stakeholders that want to chime in, they've got a sense of which articles we're planning on diving into at which meetings. But
yeah, oh, it seems that Skip is joining us remotely.
Okay.
and he's muted.
Should be,
Should be able to hear him through the owl, right?
yeah.
Let me just see. No, I'm sending audio into the Zoom and I'm not hearing it on the owl. Let me just.
Check the owl here.
Skip, you're muted, but not if you can hear us. Skip, can you hear me? I just unmuted myself.
Testing. I'm not hearing anything.
It's not helpful if the owl is not actually picking up the audio here.
Skip, can you hear me? I just unmuted myself and it doesn't sound like he can.
Yeah.
Oh,
Zoom knows you're talking.
oh, it's coming through now. I can hear you on my machine.
No. And the owl knows that I'm speaking.
I can see it on the microphone.
Okay.
Skip, can you hear us now?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. All right. So the owl speaker is for some reason not working. And
Okay, that's yours.
okay,
Something was working.
Skip, can you hear us?
Hello? Why is it echoing only in the microphone? Hello?
Yeah, so that's going back and forth.
There's only one speaker and one microphone. That's working. That's very strange. So your speaker is on.
What
And that
happens?
microphone is on.
What happens if I turn off the owl and turn it back on?
The second finance committee computer is muted. Is that?
That's this.
Yeah,
That's the second.
This one's muted.
Okay.
This one's muted and the speaker's on. That one, speaker's not doing anything, but the microphone's on.
all right.
Oh, Greg, can you hear me at all?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Raise your hand if you could hear me, Greg.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Skip?
Well, gentlemen, technology wins again. I think we have this next meeting in person.
That we heard.
Yeah. So at least we're getting audio output
So it's from the computer.
from the Zoom.
Okay.
I wonder if the issue might have been on Skip's side.
I mean, we couldn't even hear.
I mean, we weren't,
We couldn't hear ourselves at first, but once we started being able to.
yeah,
We could only hear it through this though.
yeah.
That's when I turned on the speaker
Yeah.
on here.
Right, the Zoom sound output is coming from the laptop.
Oh, from the
not
laptop.
From the owl.
Oh, okay.
So for some reason, audio output to the owl is still not working. The owl seems to be picking up input at least. So anyway, yeah, I don't know, what more we need to say about the action item list other than we continue to accumulate. At some point, we will want to start following up on the action items. We all want to go through the action item list and start working on changing, picking up, bylaw articles that we want to start working on. Sure. Given all the input we're collecting. We've talked a little bit about how to proceed with that, but not very much. And, I know you've got some slots, some space in the action item list to put in notes about what we're gonna update and when and all that. So for right now, I think we're still mostly collecting information, but it's probably for our next meeting, we want to begin going through and picking items out of that list and vote. Yeah, and I think it's probably we'll still be developing because we've got more stakeholder feedback we're looking for. But as we start working on that list, we'll be looking at each item and say, do we want to work on this or leave it alone? If we do want to work on it, how are we going to follow up working on it? And just as an example, I know the personnel bylaw is something that Evan has said he wants to, and we haven't gotten any stakeholder feedback from Evan.
Right.
In writing, but
Yeah, the two that I wanted to I guess maybe point out or see if we get some urgency in terms of response. Because of the sheer volume of articles that we had associated with each of them would be Evan and the select board as a whole.
yeah,
And I don't know if Ray has had any discussions with the select board about how they want to tackle that. It is kind of and not to say that they'll have any feedback necessarily on all of them, but they had a good series of articles that.
yeah, we give them a lot to comment into.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, the select board has not discussed any of that at a select board meeting. And I think we would like to encourage them to spend some time, at least go through all that, and give us whatever feedback they care to give us. I mean, if they want to say, yeah, we've got all these articles that you gave us to look at, and if they say nothing more than, we don't have any comments or suggestions. And we would, and I know we talked about this before with the stakeholders, we would like to get something back.
Right.
If they say, we don't have any, and we've gotten one or two like that already, that we really don't have any suggestions. Right. We'd like some positive feedback, not just, if you don't answer us, we assume you don't have any comments. Which is always a little tricky, because when that happens, and I've had something similar to that happen. Some projects the planning board is reviewing where, we basically notify a whole bunch of departments saying, here's a new project come in, we want your feedback on it. Yeah. And sometimes we don't get any feedback, and then later it turns out that, well, they really did have something they ought to have said. So we'd like not to be there. We'd like to get some positive, which kind of gets us into the next agenda item, which is stakeholder responses.
Yeah.
And we received about 10 so far. And I apologize for not sending out the fire chief's thing properly. I mean, when I got it, the email that William forwarded to me, he didn't include the chief's document. So I asked William for the document, send that to me. And my intent was, once I got that document, to send it out to the whole committee, and then it just didn't happen. So anyway, we got the fire chief, and I'll make a point of reaching out to the fire chief too, because he wanted to meet with us. Yeah. And so we'll give him an opportunity to meet with us. Hopefully he can come to our next meeting. Sure. If for some reason he can't make it to any of our meetings, we'll have to make some alternative arrangements. Yeah, we can deal with that.
CIPC hasn't responded yet. We haven't met since February. We're trying to schedule a meeting the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, I heard a rumor about that. Somebody I know on the CIPC.
so I'll make sure that gets on the agenda.
Yeah.
For that.
I mean, we gave these committees we gave them a couple months, knowing that some of them don't meet very regularly. But-
Yeah.
And there are some that haven't met in a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
I think the Agricultural Commission hasn't met since, for at least the last 2 or 3 years, so.
Oh, if nothing else, hopefully we're giving people an opportunity or a reason to get together.
Yeah, and I think someone told me that the reason the Ag Commission hasn't met is they've just never been able to get a quorum of the commission to get together, to find a time when they can all meet. So, I mean, that's the reality for some committees of, the committees that don't meet regularly. But yeah, I think what I would suggest we do is I can ask William to send out a reminder to all of the stakeholders. Just kind of, a friendly reminder, we haven't heard from you yet. Please, please get back to us as soon as possible. I mean, yeah, the deadline we gave has passed, but yeah, we're still willing to accept it. But, and we're willing to accept it, but all the way through our process.
Yeah.
The sooner you tell us what you think bylaw needs to do, the sooner we can get to work on it. Yeah. So I'll compose some sort of a simple, fairly straightforward email. And ask William to send it out to all those stakeholders that we haven't heard from. Sure. And in connection with that, I was thinking, based on, one of the members of the registrars of voters had asked. It sent me a note. I don't know if you said, I don't remember if you sent that.
Yeah, it was-
I think the whole committee got that. And it prompted me to think that we should probably send out an email to the all boards mailing list. Just to solicit input, explain, we've already solicited input from the boards and committees and departments that are specifically named in various bylaws, but I want it would be worthwhile to reach out to basically every board and every department, really. And say,
I think that was something we said we wanted to do. I kind of thought that would have gone out at the same time as the other one, but
Yeah,
perhaps we didn't decide.
I think I sort of vaguely remember mentioning something like that, but
Yeah,
one of us mentioning something like that, but yeah, I know I have not followed up and asked William to send out an everybody mail, and basically everybody. But I'll work with William and get both the stakeholder reminder and the everybody. Just request for input. I mean, I know we put out to the general public and we're trying to publicize this as best as we can. But you can always think of something more. So that would be good, just to keep, let everybody know that they're in the loop.
Yeah, if William's already sending it out, I don't know if we need to do anything. On top of that, but they, for the handful or so that are direct reports to the town administrator, either, town council, and the DPW and folks like that. Hopefully the town administrator or William will have, additional opportunity to kind of, reiterate that point with at least that crew. Town council, treasurer. And then Greg, I know Finance Committee had discussed it on a couple of points, and obviously it resulted in the charter amendment.
Yeah.
Was that the extent of the feedback from Finance?
at this
Committee?
point, yes.
Okay.
Because that will now need to go to a ballot
Yeah.
in May. So really until that duality is resolved, there's not a whole lot that can actually happen.
Sure.
Happen there, so.
Yeah, my recollection was that the Finance Committee had some discussion, that I was sitting in the room with Sue for a while.
Yeah.
Some discussion about who they thought should be on the nominating committee or the appointments committee.
Yeah.
For the 3-person committee, but that hadn't been resolved. The
Yeah.
Finance Committee basically agreed to well, we still have to work on it. We still have to discuss this and decide who we think would be appropriate for that. So by the time the charter change gets approved at the ballot in May, and by then the finance committee should have decided what they would recommend for what the bylaw should say. And then we can incorporate that into the bylaw amendments in the fall. I think that the timing works out on that. So in a sense, we've received, although not in writing, some feedback from the finance committee.
Yeah.
Part of which is, we'll let you know what we want it to look like. We know we want it to change.
Yeah.
And we'll let you know, and that's sufficient for our purposes right now, is we're identifying things that may need to be changed. The work that we still have on our plate is to work out what those changes are. And so I think if I remember right, the schedule we sort of laid out, I think we had planned to have the changes pretty much finalized by May.
Yep.
So that gives you guys on the FinCom a few months to get your act together and decide who you want to be appointing FinCom members.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't need to know the answer to that tonight. We just need to know that's coming down the road.
Yeah, so I suppose as the FinCom rep on the committee, we can say that, we can record it as feedback received, planning adjustment to appointing committee pending ballot vote in May.
And
So about row 7, I've had some conversations with some people about gender specific pronouns and different options. And the one that seems to be the consensus these days, rather than using his or her, is just use they, their, them. So maybe if we probably update that one to replace all occurrences of gender specific pronouns with they, their, and them. That's a nice, simple change that people could understand, and hopefully that is sufficient for a
that change,
proposal.
knowing the attitudes of some people in town, that change will not be without controversy.
Right. Didn't say it'd be easy to pass, just easy to understand and write.
And I wonder, and I'm sure we can't be the first to be considering this, so I'd be interested in town council's feedback as to whether or not that would really represent a substantive change. Is that something we really even need to vote on? Or is that a change that we could push through as non-substantive? I mean, it's really.
I don't think it's editorial. It's not a mistake. It is not formatting. So it is the actual text of the bylaws. So
Yeah, I do think that there's a certain set of changes that could likely or maybe be thought of as non-substantive, things like spelling errors, formatting. But with basically all changes that we think might be non-substantive, we want to definitely get town council to weigh in on that. Yeah. Just to be on the safe side, anything that might need to be voted on rather than just quietly done.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we get that covered.
yeah, so there is a statement in the town charter that all pronouns are as expected, are to be taken as referring to any gender, or it may have said either gender. So
Yeah,
but we do not have such a statement in the bylaws, so.
yeah. So well, that's something that we will want to work on.
Yeah.
What the best resolution for that is going to be needs to be seen. So
And that was obviously a point of feedback specifically from the moderator.
Yes.
That she felt strongly about.
Yeah, so, basically the idea, what our work item would be to figure out the most appropriate way to resolve that. Whether
Oh, yeah,
it's,
she had the same feedback, so.
Yeah.
Well, okay, hers was specifically about 215 and not the whole thing.
Yeah.
whether it's the somewhat more traditional. He could mean he or she. Whenever you see the masculine gender, you can assume the feminine gender as well is intended, or whether it's something which on its face is more gender neutral, like they were. Which, as I said, I think that will rub some people the wrong way, but whether and it may depend upon the way we do it too.
Yeah.
Do it as neutral and straightforward and innocuous as the way as we can.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was the addition to the part of the charter that kind of covers this in however inadequate a way, but that does more than we currently do in the bylaws. Wasn't that part of the most recent charter amendments with the charter commission?
I do not know.
And for some reason I thought I had seen that first in the section that we've been talking about, the kind of beginning part of the charter that looks like the charter, but isn't
Yeah.
really. And so I thought it was, might have come out of their review. So the only reason I bring that up is that's obviously something that's been litigated, at least partially, somewhat recently, within the last handful of years. And so I mean, personally, I would view that as the minimum step, but. And to Dave's point, you know, if that's the gentlest way to approach it, I think that's kind of the minimum threshold, but I think we can probably do better.
Yeah, let's see, there's amend the charter by correcting capitalization of various words throughout the charter. As shown in the draft. Town website was added. I do not see it in there.
Yeah, I think that's. Let's see.
Yeah, and Greg, to your point, it does, it specifies words importing the feminine gender shall include the masculine, words importing the masculine gender shall include the feminine, so it is.
And what section is that in?
That's 7-4.
Which seems kind of late in the charter to do that, but better than nothing.
Yeah, well, it's in the, Article 7 of the charter,
General
general provisions, which. One might have thought that really belongs up front,
Yeah.
like Article 1 or Article 2, but it's where they put it.
Yeah.
It's an odd place. It's a lot of it is the type of thing that usually are sort of introductory material.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's toward the end of the charter, that's just where they put it. I wonder.
So other than the transitional provisions, that is actually the last bit of the charter.
Yeah, that I think has been in the charter from the beginning. I have the 2008 charter here. I don't think I have an earlier one. But it's been in there for since at least 2000, and they did not do very many changes in 2008.
It's probably progressive, 2008.
Do you remember when the charter was first adopted?
1987.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just after I moved into town.
About 10 years before I moved to town.
So let's see where we're at with with our meeting tonight. Yeah, so we've said probably all that we need to say for now on the action item list. We've talked about the stakeholder responses. We'll send out a reminder to the stakeholders. We'll send out on all boards email soliciting input.
I guess just briefly circling back to the action item, what I can do is, so I haven't done this yet. Take a look at, probably a list of the articles and which ones, and there might be some out there that we haven't asked, identified any individual stakeholders. And that, we're either planning on taking on ourselves or, maybe that it's, straightforward enough that we're not expecting any changes. And make a list of either any of those or ones where we've only sought feedback from a stakeholder who has responded to us. So in other words, from a stakeholder standpoint, those are closed. And so we can at least pull together that list of ones where we're not waiting on somebody else. And if we want to start taking those up, we'll have the population of articles that should be right for us to move forward with.
I think we identified somebody for every article.
on this one.
Yeah,
We probably did.
I remember looking at that before we sent it out to make sure that we had all of them covered.
And so, probably one of the bigger impediments, like we were saying before, was, there's a number that are associated with the town administrator and a number that associated with the select board. So I have a feeling those two will hold up a large number, but, looking at the ones that, the fire chief responded to, I think he's probably the only person that chimed in on those. The police chief is probably also, asked for feedback on the alarm bylaw, but for the one section bylaw on the fire department, mandatory retirement, I think at least one of the others that he chimed in on, he's probably the only person providing feedback. So like those are essentially closed from a stakeholder perspective.
So for the issue tracking sheet, can you add an entry for every article? And
Sure.
just put in there feedback received, no changes needed for the ones
Sure.
that,
Yeah, so we can essentially close those up.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's sort of another dimension to this is, the action item list is sorted by article, but there's a summary, kind of a summary for each article. Sure.
Yeah, there should be a list in the email of who they were going out to, so if we can put each of those in and confirm receipt.
Yeah.
In there, that would.
Yeah.
And make sure we have all of them covered.
Yeah. Yeah. On the timeline that we talked about the last couple of times, we had identified November as a possible time to have a meeting specifically for the purpose of soliciting input from the public. Our usual meeting schedule being the second and fourth Thursdays. The fourth Thursday of November is probably not a good day to hold a meeting.
No.
So we would have our regular schedule at least would give us one meeting in November, the 10th, I think it is.
Yeah, 2 days after the election.
And they can conduct other business at meeting as well, because we've talked about a couple of other topics, but
Select board is having the goals meeting that day.
On the 10th.
So we shouldn't invite them, I guess.
yeah, we can, right, we can assume that maybe they won't be able to come.
Yeah.
But, I think our idea was more for that to be.
Yeah.
advertise it as an opportunity for the general public to come in.
In part because, Skip and Ray haven't had a chance to take part in the last couple of meetings. I was thinking about, what if we altered to the first and third, with the first Thursday being, a meeting for, mainly a regular meeting, to hopefully be able to catch them up and get any feedback that they've had over some of the things we've been chatting about the last couple of meetings.
Third is a potential meeting date for CIPC.
Yeah, and I was thinking the third being the Thursday right before Thanksgiving, that might not be a great one to, have as the public outreach anyway. So, the 10th is probably still our best option.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not quite sure what more we can do to advertise to the public. So in a sense, I mean, we've already tried to put the word out to the public that we want their input, but it probably still would be worthwhile to advertise a specific date for the public to come in and talk to us.
Yeah. So I was thinking that if select board doesn't need A that day, that would be a good way that we could do it as a Zoom meeting, so people could join in that way.
Yes, that would be helpful.
And when they discussed the goals meeting, and I think it was Evan that specifically said the last time they did it, they met in session in A and then broke off to another conference room for the goals piece. And I know he specifically said he didn't like that and he wanted it to exclusively be goals focused. So I don't think they'd be starting in A.
Yeah, and I don't know that this is at this point whether this is definite, but A has been reserved for A on the Affordable Housing Trust has a reservation on the calendar that November 10th for A. November 17th, A is currently not.
About the 9th.
The 9th, A looks open. Yeah, there's a couple, pretty regular users of room A on Thursdays are the Community Preservation Committee, the Affordable Housing Trust, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Hey. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6 on the master calendar. There are 6 things on Thanksgiving Day.
Because they're just simple recurring meetings.
Recurring bridge club, senior exercise in the gym, mat yoga in the gym, cardio bar in the gym, the development team meeting. They meet every Thursday afternoon in A.
Yeah.
Youth basketball. Somehow I don't think any.
Sure. Those will get cleared out.
I hope we're still having the bridge meeting on Thanksgiving.
But yeah, we could look at scheduling a public meeting, outreach meeting on the 9th. Provided we're all available on the 9th.
Yeah, that would work for me.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
think,
okay with that.
if I have generally a meeting on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, but not the 2nd. I think that would work. Yeah, so another thing to get William to do is put out some sort of an advertisement for that.
Do we want to, at least circulate it to Skip and Ray? first to see if they'd be able to make it.
Yes,
I'm
let's
not saying we need all 5 of us, but
right. Yeah,
I
and
can't remember if either of them had mentioned any standing conflicts on Wednesdays or.
yeah, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I think someone did. Someone had problems with some Wednesday. Ray did tell me on Monday night that he thinks maybe he'd like to get a different select board member to be the rep on this committee. Yeah, because he said his schedule turned out to be problematic for meeting with us. So we may find ourselves with a new select board member to replace Ray. Don't know for sure, but it might turn out to be Andy. Sure, I know Andy and I have had some conversations about it, and Ray had asked Anne Marie too, but she was reluctant to do that, so it might be Andy, but we'll have to wait and see.
Just gonna pack a committee with finance committee alumni and current members.
Yeah,
No, it's good.
so that's that. Yeah, we'll try to confirm with the missing committee members, whether November 9th would be a good night for public outreach. Our first, we tentatively thought of 3 public outreach meetings. And as we've said, we will gladly accept it from the public at any of our meetings or in between meetings. But, you know, you can put the word out to the public and generally don't get a whole lot of response from the public, but we try. So let me see where we're at. I think unless we have any other business. We're gonna have on the agenda here.
Minutes.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I did have a slot on the agenda for public comment, just in case anybody from the public.
Anybody
came to the
else?
meeting. But we have no Zoom attendees here. Just 3 of us on Zoom and here in the room. So the only value that Zoom is giving us is a recording of the meeting.
Which will need to be edited. Remove the technical difficulty.
Yeah, but so far we haven't been publishing our meeting recordings.
Okay.
Been recording the meetings, sending them to Brian so that he can write minutes off the recording instead of having to try to take minutes during the meeting,
Okay.
which is at times in other committees in times past, I've had nobody else to take minutes. I've chaired the meeting and taken notes during the meeting, and then when I try to sit down afterwards to, to write up some actual minutes, it's sometimes interesting to try to interpret my notes.
Yeah, I was secretary for a couple of years back in the 80s for a scouting group. I brought a tape recorder to meetings.
That's what it's one of the handy things about Zoom. It'll record the meeting and then you can review the recording afterwards.
Although I suppose we'll find out if, I think we're assuming that it's recording the audio, but.
Yes, it's
The microphone's there.
yeah, it appears to be recorded. Well, we'll find out what audio would actually record. Okay, so yeah, our last agenda item is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed. Their motion carried unanimously. We can actually vote without
Okay.
calling the roll. Okay. So I think we're done for the night.
All right.
I've got some homework to do. Brian's got some homework to do with the action item list.
So you can declare the meeting adjourned.
I'll just reach out to William and I could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved to second, this meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?